What are you expecting? 20 million people betting outside of the traditional brackets we know. What is the most popular way you're seeing people getting into the sport of sports betting?
What's interesting about March Madness is it provides a whole variety of different ways you can get engaged. So the traditional bracket would be how people used to engage in this, but 70+% of the action that's going to go on the tournament this year is going to be outside of the bracket infrastructure. So that's might be who's going to win the tournament, who's going to win a particular contest, and so spreading this out over 3 weeks gives you a lot of different options.
Jerry, get into that a little bit, because you wrote this story, as Shonali mentioned, on sports betting and sort of how it's playing out on college campuses. Can you just talk about the different scenarios that you found in your reporting?
Yeah, the sports betting apps are really competing with each other. They're really racing to sign up more users as more states legalize online sports betting. And one, target audience are fans of college sports teams. They found that those people are, in some cases, are more loyal than professional sports teams. And so the sports betting apps are now entering into these marketing agreements with at least 7 schools so far. And they get their name brand inside the arenas and stadiums and on radio broadcasts. And, in one case in particular, at Louisiana State University, the school's athletic department sent out an email to students and alumni, urging them to sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook app. And LSU had recently signed an agreement with Caesars Sportsbook. And so this, some professors and students at the school, this kind of rubbed them the wrong way. They have, experts are concerned about, targeting a younger demographic, especially when, 21 is the legal age for gambling. But the sports betting companies, they see this as a really attractive, group to go after. Certainly people who are over 21, and the colleges need the money. The pandemic has really punched a hole in their budgets. They had to limit fan attendance, cancel some games during the pandemic. So they see this as a lucrative opportunity.
Casey, I'm wondering from your perspective, what is the key demographic here, and what are some of the concerns, as Jerry mentioned, and his story mentions, the student that is worried about universities encouraging students to gamble?
And I think that's a fair concern. It's one that the gaming industry shares. And I think that, as these partnerships start to roll out, that there's going to be, or clearly there was some mistakes made there. And I don't think that's something that you're going to see replicated. In fact, every one of these agreements and the other agreements that we have in place, not just on college campuses, but everywhere, include responsible gaming education. And I think that's really important to bring that directly to the most vulnerable population who might be just learning about this or just getting into it for the first time. So, we have dedicated responsible marketing code that dictates kind of how the gaming industry goes to market and attracts customers to this. That includes making sure we don't target people under 21. So in any situation that's happening, that comes to everyone's attention pretty quickly. And so I don't think you're going to see a lot of that. I think it's important to note that it'd be naive to suggest that people and college students aren't or weren't betting on sports before this legalization or before these partnerships. And so what we need to do is make sure that they have access to the resources to understand how to do this responsibly, where they can do this legally, how do they treat this as a form of entertainment, which is really all it should be.
Yeah, and some of that complication, Jerry, and you get into this in your story, is really because there's no nationwide law around sports betting in general. So how are some of these schools sort of tackling it? Because it's not just states where they're sort of tackling sports betting and how it's working on campuses. Even schools individually are doing, their own education and trying to get ahead of any of these particular concerns.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, since the Supreme Court effectively legalized sports betting, we've seen about 30 states adopt it, and some states have said you can bet on sports online, but you can't bet on college games in the state that you live in. We've seen a few universities like Purdue and Villanova that have said to students and faculty, and staff there that you can't bet on our college's teams games. So there's been some steps, there's really a range of how comfortable schools and states are with this. I mean, you have schools like Louisiana State and University of Maryland and Michigan State that have these agreements to promote sports betting, to fans. And then you've got other schools that are taking a much more cautious approach.